Welcome to the Talent with Purpose Project podcast. If you dream of making it in film, fashion, television, or theater, you're in the right place. Join us as we connect with today's top talent agents, managers, and casting directors, as well as performers who started out just like you, bringing you insider insights and expert guidance to help you shine in the performing arts. Brought to you by Gold Talent International, this podcast is your gateway to success, from Hollywood to Las Vegas and beyond. Are you ready? Let's go. From his start as a teen ventriloquist in Duluth, Minnesota, to sharing the stage with his grumpy grandpa puppet George, comedian Jeremy Lepak has been bringing laughter to audiences for over 15 years. His comedy act features a whole cast of unique characters, including Cockroach, Dizzy the Dodo Bird, and his cute elderly dog Senile Lyle. You can find clips of his performances and visit with his collection of ventriloquist figures on his YouTube channel. Are you ready to meet this powerhouse entertainer? Let's go.
And welcome everyone to the Talent with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Paul, and with me is a very entertaining young person called Jeremy Lepak. He's Polish in origin, living in the USA. And he, as you heard from the voiceover, Jeremy has been in the industry for many years since he was a teenager. And his speciality is comedy and specifically ventriloquism. So I can say that word, Jeremy, ventriloquism. Can you?
Ventriloquism is a great art form. I love ventriloquism, though. As I say it 5 times in a row, ventriloquism, 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 ventriloquism.
Well, I know that's quite a technique that one has to employ within an act of ventriloquism when you bring one of your figures up into the process of that particular show. You use that particular technique in order to let everybody see that you're very good at being a ventriloquist.
Yes, and it's all a character performance, so the character has to be well established. It has to be a whole different character than you. For instance, I brought a few guys along today. This is Sheldon. He's my shy... Whoa, his glasses fell off. Been working on getting those to stay on. He's my little shy nerd, so I come out on stage. I'm confident. I'm a performer. I'm early nervous to be on stage. Who's that guy? That's Paul Kershaw. Paul Kershaw? He makes me nervous. I don't know why. It's because he's a professional. A professional, yeah. So he's not like you then. Well, all right. So you establish a character that's much different than you, or quick example here, rapid fire. I got this little old man, he's all fast, and, sometimes I gotta ask him to speak up for me because he talks so fast. You gotta slow down, I know. I like this guy, yeah. No, come here. So, and that's basically what it is what you just saw there is a lot of characterization. And then, of course, they have lines, script, everything. A lot of what I do is improvise, too.
Well, I think, Jeremy, that's one of the questions I have, as a performer working as a comedian and as a ventriloquist. I've often wondered what comes first. Is the character in your head, or do you see a ventriloquist figure and think, what character can I create around this being, this figure?
So for me, it's kind of a mix of both. Most of what I do is the character first, and that's the usual way you would do it as a ventriloquist, just so it gets well established. You know, you're not going to blow $1,000 on a hard figure. So basically, the character usually comes first, and that is the case with most of mine. I do have 2 where the puppet came first, and that one of them is Lyle, that little dog. And then one is Cockroach. He's my crazy punk rocker. Anybody that's familiar with who I am has seen him. Those 2 are actually impulse buys at the ventriloquist convention, but I picked them up off the table and I was immediately telling jokes with them and making people laugh, and I knew they had to come with me at the expense of my bank account.
So that triggers off a different character each time within you?
Yeah, so and I've always been really good at the improvising, picking up a character, doing the Jeff Dunham will actually teach at our ventriloquist convention. One of his favorite techniques is the ironic thing. And a good example of this would be his Irish baby, Seamus. Anybody who's seen his more recent specials has seen the Irish baby. He's cute. He comes out on stage. You expect just a little kind of voice. But he comes out and he's, I'll break your arm. And so with that skill, I would go to the ventriloquist convention, and we have the dealer's rooms where you buy a puppet from. And it's dangerous for my bank account because I'm already good at doing it, and I get tempted to buy a puppet or two or even three every single year. So it takes a little self-control if you're good at doing that. But like I said, a lot of what comes first is the material, and that's how they teach you, and that's usually the best way to do it. I'm kind of a daredevil in that aspect. So,
one of the questions I've often wondered is how many identities lay within a ventriloquist.
It depends what they're comfortable with. A ventriloquist that's only been doing it a few years or maybe a few months and they're brand new will have one, maybe two. I've got upwards of, I want to say 12, 13. In one show, I'll use 4 of them, and they're all very distinct. There's a couple that share some material that I don't use in the same show. But that's another trick for rebooking is when you use different puppets, even if they have the same material, it's going to look like a whole new show. So there comes a balance point where it seems intimidating and it seems scary that you have like 14 or 15 distinct characters and acts. But you can always borrow from another character if you forget anything. He doesn't have to forget. Thank you, Lucky.
If you've got all of that material and all of that process going on within, who you are and the work that you've done, because this is not easy work to produce these characters on a consistent level. It takes, like any performer, it takes a huge amount of rehearsal and practice and work to get that character on a level that can display accurately.
And I've been doing this. Sorry, dog is playing with a toy. If you're wondering why I keep leaning down and looking around. So I've been doing it for just over 17 years now. I believe my 18th year is next year. I don't have an exact date or anything. If I was smart, I would have made an anniversary date. But since I've been doing it just shy of 18 years, it really gives you time to sit, develop. I've had character ideas that I've never used on stage even, and I might one day bring them back out. So there's about 5 or 6 extra characters that I have a little bit of material for that don't exist.
So that's a work of art in progress, correct?
Yes. And there might be a new one next year. There might not be. There might be a new one in 2 years, maybe 2 new ones. It's very, I like to say I'm very unpredictable. I never know when this idea will come into my head and I just start running with it. And next thing I know, I just wrote 8 jokes for a character that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me is that what a ventriloquist figure within a show can say that the comedian or ventriloquist is not going to say to anybody.
Oh, I have a drunk one that I have a drunk one that in my adult shows, I've performed at bars too occasionally, and he'll darn near get into a fight with someone in the audience. And I've actually had a drunk guy giving the look to him. There's a particular look that people give when they're ready to get up and go do something.
Yeah.
But he's actually been looked at like that before, and they forget that he's not a real guy on my arm. He's a puppet. What am I going to do? Throw him at him?
Yeah. Isn't it fascinating how attention can be diverted away from a particular subject to another particular subject?
Or this little guy, he's the star of my show. I use him every single show except a few kids ones here and there because he's a little slow for kids. But he's a very cute character. I have people try to pet him thinking he's a real dog. I've had people have him sniff their hand even. Pretty realistic. Yeah. Lyle, that was just tasteless. Actually, no, it wasn't. Okay. So a lot of senior gigs especially, they will try to pet Lyle like he's a real dog. It's like they forget.
It truly is an amazing art. And I think like anybody in the performing arts, They need to understand the timing of comedy. And what feedback do you need from your, let's say, audiences of different ages that will allow you then to continue down the path that you've started with a particular act?
Well, laughter is always the big one you want. Laughter and applause. Hi, Ava. This is the other dog. The real dog. So laughter, applause is always what you're going for when you do this art form. But a lot of ventriloquists have gotten discouraged because they'll go do a show if they're new to it. The audience is just kind of sitting there watching them. I won't say like a jury because they're smiling too. So something I've had to come to learn myself through the years, and my good friend and mentor Bob Abdu, Mr. Puppet, teaches this as well. Just because they're not laughing doesn't mean they're not having a good time. So as long as people aren't just getting up and leaving or rolling their eyes and just groaning at everything you're doing, I think you're doing pretty good on stage. Of course, the biggest answer is getting rebooked. It doesn't happen with every booking, obviously, but rebooking is the biggest compliment you can ever get as a performer. And I've told audiences when I do fairs are my main market. If you guys really enjoyed the show, I know you guys may be inclined to tip me because it does happen a lot. But I would rather you guys go talk to the fair board and tell them what a good time you have, and that can solidify a rebooking right there.
Yeah, of course.
I've had directors tell me like during my term at that fair when I'm leaving, I'm getting my paycheck. I've had them say, "Let's get you next year. We've been hearing good things about you."
Yeah, that's always a tribute to the work that you've put in, because that's what's needed here, is you're doing the work and rehearsals as work. I mean, this is your income.
Yeah.
And so it's important to have that repeat business.
And like I said earlier about changing your show, I spend a lot of time in the winter brainstorming new material, new songs to perform. We do comedy and music. In the summer, I don't have time to do it because of all the gigs. So in the summer, that's my practice, is being there on stage performing right there. But all winter long, I have a little more time. I do senior gigs and stuff in the winter sporadically. But you get a lot of time to sit. Where did this joke work out in my show? Okay, I'm gonna keep it. It got big laughs. A lot of what I've come up with too was improvised in my summer shows and my county fairs. And there's been a couple, I'll admit, I'm like, why do they find that so funny? I'm gonna keep doing it. But so that's basically it. There's a pattern you develop as you get used to doing this art form, where in the summer you're busy, you're traveling, you're just doing your gigs, and you're doing a little bit of customer service for your bookers. Wintertime, later wintertime, we get snow here in Minnesota. It's no secret for anybody that knows Minnesota. You get a lot of time to sit, contact new potential bookers, try to reach out. A lot of what you get is word of mouth. But if you're getting rebooked, people see it, is what I'll say. You're running with that. I know. It's an on-the-spot question, Lucky. Yeah, I could tell. You're running with that answer. Don't break your legs. My leg fell off at the last show we did.
What is the hardest letter of the alphabet to pronounce as a ventriloquist? W.
When I was new, I would say I had the most trouble with B. When you're doing ventriloquism, you're doing the substitute letters. I feel like a lot of people that watch your show might have researched this at some point. Some people use the letter G. I use the letter D by pressing my tongue hard against my teeth. So the thing died Lou into the balloon. He's done the dust in about a dozen times. I'm running out of words. But when I was new, I had so much trouble getting that to not sound like a D. So I was saying the dig died Lou because I didn't have the positioning yet. And it took about 2 years to really get that sound out. A lot of ventriloquists struggle, and I've seen it a lot at the ventriloquist convention, and I give advice where it's due. Getting a clear sound out too. So another challenge with it not only is the letters, and a lot of people say keeping your lips still, which is pretty important, but it's not the first priority, is getting the sound clear, because you want to be able to understand what the figure is saying too. And I've seen a lot of performances where people are like, "What?" and they lose laughs because of it. And it could be a great joke, but if they're not getting the replacement sounds perfect and the sound's not coming out clear and enunciated, there will be missed laughs sometimes. So that would be my advice too to anybody learning replacement letters and all that. Focus on, of course, the lips, and I used to prioritize the lips, so I had trouble with the enunciation when I was younger. Get the enunciation out. That's more important. The audience would rather know what the figure is saying. Jeff Dunham moves his lips, but he's clear. He has great material. His replacement sounds are impeccable, and as a result, he's a very entertaining ventriloquist.
Yeah, really top of his field, I would say.
Yeah.
One of the questions I have for you, Jeremy, right now is that since you started at such a young age, and besides the technical skill of being a ventriloquist, what has changed for you as a performer?
Like over the years.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I was into more adult comedy. That was kind of the only comedy I would really watch, listen to. I would watch Edgar Bergen and Paul Winchell too, don't get me wrong there. But I wanted to be the nightclub comedian. I wanted to be the guy that goes to nightclubs. He's the headliner and he's knocking people out with these, sex jokes, drinking, alcohol, jokes. And I still do some of those shows, don't get me wrong. But through the years, I noticed how many kids love what I'm doing. And I used to work at a restaurant, and I've had one of my big moments when I worked at a restaurant is I had a child run up, and it was Sheldon I was using. I had him back then too. And this cute little girl runs up and hugs Sheldon. She barely understands the jokes he's telling because I was doing more adult stuff at the time. But once that kid hugged that figure, it was right around the time I was starting to do family fair shows. That's kind of where I knew I belonged, was doing family ones for a living. Still do adult ones here and there if I'm requested for them, but family is where it's at. And family also forces you to be more clever. You can't just tell sex jokes on stage with a family show. It makes you think. And
Yeah,
I'm not knocking adult shows either because those can be their own challenge. But
absolutely. Yeah. Different audiences and different ways of presenting.
yeah, I mean, I will say an adult show, I've had more hecklers than children's shows. Children know how to behave more than a drunk adult in a lot of cases. So,
Yeah, children are always ready for a good time.
not always. I've had some moshing up to me basically when I did a show 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. It was an ice cream social about 2.5 hours from my house. And nobody was stopping the kids from walking all the way up to me. And I had to stop a few from going around and looking inside I have a big rolling table where everything's visible from behind. I had to stop a few kids from doing that, and a couple of them were starting to tug on the figure's leg. So in family shows as well, you have to learn crowd control, or those kids can rule you, and you don't want that.
Yeah, definitely an art that you are working with, and a very fine art of processing each moment.
Yeah, but man, you cherish every moment. I'll say that. I mean, I've had shows not go so well. I mean, everybody does, but I try to find the positive moments in those shows. Like I had one where an agent lied, or not an agent, but the client lied about my show to the agent, saying I didn't have an act. There was a disappointing head count for their event. I can't get too far into it, but the agent took my side because I took videos insurance. So whenever I'm booked by an agent, I do that. But basically, that show was like any other show I do in the summer. They were laughing, having a good time, and because of that, I had that power over this person that tried to rip my agent off.
You're with the Talent with Purpose podcast, where passion meets action and stories light the way. If you're interested in watching new episodes, please remember to subscribe by hitting the bell icon. Please share this episode with your friends and family so they can connect with our platform and be inspired. You can also inspire other people who may be interested in our world of fashion, arts, and entertainment by posting in the comments section below. Just a simple hello or even commenting algorithm will drive this podcast to others' feeds and screens. Let's put purpose into motion and add to the whole. Thank you for subscribing and valuing our content. Are you ready for the rest of this episode? Let's go.
And so,
Always a dynamic of people, let's say, interfering with a current process for their own benefit.
yeah, I cherish the laughter I had at that event, the people that were having a good time.
Yeah, but
Because
that's
everybody else was. It was the one client.
the business of show business shows up on every level.
It's a business that can, trying to think of a good analogy. It's like eating at a buffet or, eating at a buffet I'll use. You'll be eating great. There's amazing food on the line. You're eating great. You feel amazing. You feel like yourself. You're having a good time. But you can get food poisoning once in a while. And some people get turned off to that buffet because they got food poisoning. But I will say, it's like anything else in life. I've gone through some relationships. I've gone through a marriage. It can be the best thing to ever happen to you, or it can hurt. But what counts is when you're a professional, it's like putting on armor that keeps you from getting hurt.
That's one of the questions I have for you as well, is what is it that you work towards getting out of an audience for yourself personally?
My biggest goal is they had a great time and they bragged me up to the book, or do you mean like career path wise, or just like in the moment?
Just saying, in the moment as a person, what do you attain from that performance from an audience? Or what do you want to attain? What do you want to achieve in terms of an audience sharing an experience or sharing a moment with you?
Well, my favorite thing is when they're not sitting there going, huh. But I'm a believer in vibes of a room. Like you can feel when everybody is having a good time in a room or if they're not. That's why, like, if you walk into a funeral or something like that, it's so heavy feeling. But if you're in a room where somebody's making everybody in the room laugh, there's this feeling you get, and I feed off that feeling. Like there's nothing that makes me happier than going on stage. 2020 we had virtual shows. I did a couple of them, but they're just not the same as being in the room with the crowd. So I guess you could say I feed off that vibe that a crowd that's having a good time gives.
So for me, it's an important process to understand why anybody in this world of entertainment does what they do. And your answer has perfectly highlighted that particular process, because for me, the creative arts, the performing arts, and the healing process of, let's say in this case, laughter is such a deep, life-changing process for people to experience. People,
Absolutely.
people forget to laugh. They forget the lightness of life.
Like I still have a 9 to 5. The business side of this is taking over now. So every summer I'm far busier doing this than at the 9 to 5 these days. I still do have a 9 to 5, and I won't slam 9 to 5s. I mean, there are some people that do better by having one of them. For instance, health insurance in the United States. But I would much rather be burned out and sick of doing this, driving around, heat exhaustion. You deal with that in the summers. It gets humid here in Minnesota. I'd much rather be exhausted from doing that than exhausted and burned out from a 9 to 5, because I'm doing what I've always wanted to do. And I would rather be sick of going on stage, which in the winter, that kind of recovers you from it.
Yeah, very dynamic answer. Thanks very much for that, Jeremy, because I think that if one does not have that understanding of one's purpose, of who one is and what one is born to be, you cannot be fully authentic in that expression.
Yes. Yeah, like to support what I was saying, it's an amazing art form. Most people won't get sick of it if they love what they're doing. There's a yellow jacket flying by me right now and it needs to leave. Wow. They get to the size of your thumb around here. They get big. Please leave. And now my dog is chasing you. So sorry about that sidetrack. Um, You will get sick of it sometimes, even if it's the main thing you love doing. If you're doing county fair after county fair after county fair, and you're doing several shows a day for multiple days at those fairs, you'll get sick of going on stage for a little bit, and then that's when you do a little self-care, and then you heal up and you're ready to do it all over again, even if it's the same act.
Of
And
course,
that's another part of changing your act every year is you don't want to get bored of the same act. Like,
yeah, if you have the ability to recognize that, that is an amazing gift to have, amazing amount of self-work that has gone on in order to recognize that one is one point.
Like on every single one of the shows, especially in the summer, maybe not the kids ones. Kids get a little afraid of me. But, Jeremy brings me to a lot of summer shows. I sure do lucky that he changes the songs I perform. I play on a piano if anyone's seen his videos, and I sing. Just this year, I started singing Chantilly Lace, and he calls me, the cell phone out of the trunk. And the next year, I'll be doing something entirely different. So even if you do the same characters in your act, if you're changing up the material, the songs and stuff, it's harder to get burned out from what you're doing. Elvis Presley, actually, the last 2 years he was performing, 1976, 1977. I'm a big Elvis fan. His set list almost never changed. Substitute maybe 2 or 3 songs, maybe a rare one he hasn't played in like 8 years. But Elvis Presley suffered from that because he would never change his material. Granted, back then they weren't really professionally filming the shows, so he could get away with it. But you could tell when he was getting bored. Like 1975, he quit doing Suspicious Minds because he hated the song by the end.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to hate what you're doing. That's right, Sheldon. No, you never want to hate what you're doing. I just hate what Jeremy smells like on stage. Sheldon, I wear deodorant. What do you use? Tartar sauce? That's one of those jokes I do in my show, and every time it works. I didn't even think it was that funny when I first started doing it, but like I said, a lot of what you do is for the audience too. So, if you're getting sick of a certain joke that you're doing, that's too bad. If the audience loves it, keep doing it.
Yeah, if it works, it works. Don't change what's working, just add to it.
I've been doing almost the same act since Jeremy debuted me in 2019, and people don't mind. I don't. If I made things realistic, that would mean Lyle retired from his job about 200 times. That's about how many times I've done that joke on stage.
Okay, it's wonderful. For anybody who is wanting to start off, anybody who's really young, like you were when you followed your passion and your heart, what do you think is the most important message you would share with them right now?
So I would always hope with a lot of kids that your parents support what you do. Mine have always pretty well supported me. The first dummy I actually got, they bought for me out of a Sears catalog. It was the pull string Mortimer Snurd. I still have them too. A very important thing when you're a kid doing ventriloquism is that when you're new to it, like if you're showing it off at school because you'll be inclined to do it, don't listen to anything negative that some people may say. I've been bullied for it in middle school. I've been told I suck because I was new at it. But keep doing it. Don't ever give up on this art form because, well, I never gave up, and now I'm running around county fairs all summer performing, making pretty good money. And I think that would probably be my biggest one. Just being when I was in the 6th grade, I was bullied pretty heavily. This was before I did ventriloquism, but I chose not to listen to the bullies anymore. And they eventually stop when they see that you just don't care what they're saying. So if I had to pick a big thing for a young entertainer, I would probably pick that.
I think that's probably lovely sage advice indeed. Thank you very much for that, because very often we see scenarios where we are bringing young talent, and I'm saying really young, new performers into the industry who have excellent talent and they have all the potential in the world, and yet their dream can get squashed quite easily by people around them, friends and family, who don't believe in what they're doing,
The one client that lied to me about my agent, or lied to me to my agent, saying I didn't have an act, and At the time, I was with my ex-wife, and we had our dog and our dog was vicious, barking at children, and my ex-wife was yelling at children. I was watching her the whole time. It wasn't true. They weren't far from the stage, so I was able to watch them too. Um, that's far from my first person that was rude to me about what I do. I've had many more. I've had people that just straight up like, "You're weird, dude," and that's when you're like, "Okay, I make money at it." So don't get discouraged. Jeff Dunham has failed more times than anybody on this podcast who may be listening has ever tried. Jeff Dunham has a story and he has that autobiography. I think it's All by Myself, and he talks about he did his best material with Walter. This was before he did his first nighttime appearance, so this was long before he got big. He performed for an agent that was just casting, looking for the next big performer with Walter. And he did his best material, he said, his funniest material that would put people in tears at the comedy clubs. And the agent said to him, "Thank you for your time. You may move on," or whatever. We'll call you. And usually "we'll call you" means you're not getting called. And so Jeff Dunham himself, a multi-million-dollar ventriloquist who performs sold-out arenas, has had people tell him, "No, it's not going to happen." And I bet they're eating their words now. But
that's the nature of people and in the industry, and we should never take no for an answer.
Yeah. And that's what I'll say again, to reiterate, and it gets around a lot. It's very encouraging words, and it's helped me when I've needed it. The master has failed more times than the beginner has ever tried. I've had shows where I wanted to just go kick the bathroom door open and sit in there for 2 hours. And, most shows are great, but you will get those shows too down the line. And it dials back to what you're doing right now. You're a new performer. You're getting used to, you're hearing right now what I'm saying, to not let things get to you, to not give up on what you love doing. This is building roots for you. So when you grow, you're a tree that's growing. You're going to have people try to cut you down. And you're building layers inside the trunk under the bark with this advice that Paul may give you, what I'm giving you. So just don't give up if you're a young kid doing this.
Yeah,
and feel free to add me on Facebook. I love chatting it up with beginners.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come to the ventriloquist convention, I would love to meet you. I go almost every year.
So thank you for sharing that wonderful advice and inspiration, Jeremy. It means a lot to us that you've taken the time to do this. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I used to struggle a lot when I was younger with self-doubt as well. I just wanted to add to that too. This is a big subject for me. I've grown up many years, and you've seen a couple Facebook statuses I may have made a few years ago. I had to delete right away because this self-doubt would start hitting me hard. But then you have to realize what the facts are. You performed a show about a week ago. They were having a great time, and they had no idea that you're dealing with this. So a lot of us artists struggle with that too. I think most artists do.
I think for us here, we are able to see very clearly those differences in people. We don't just look at the performance. We look at the reality of the person and the issues that are underlying within any particular process. And I mean, mostly our audience is mostly youngsters, young children. And the amount of issues and trauma that many children in the performing arts are dealing with is incredible to watch. And then we have to decide,
Yeah, Terry Fader, good example of that. Famous ventriloquist. He's made it out there, so it's okay that I say this on here. He's made it known. His father didn't support anything he did growing up. Never told him he was proud of him. He was already becoming a professional ventriloquist. He was doing county fairs at the time. And his father multiple times has just told him, "It's not going to work. This isn't your career." He won America's Got Talent. 2011, I believe it was, or 2010, one of those years. So if you're going through trauma yourself, the listener who's listening to this, I've gone through a lot of stuff myself. You'll have that voice inside you. It will be there telling you you're not enough. It will be there telling you that you're not doing things right. It will tell you you're not good as a performer. You have to learn how to take the facts in, film your shows, and listen to that audience giving their thank yous to you.
Yeah, it's a huge experience. And for us, it's a gift to be able to have these youngsters around us, to know that they're on a journey called life, and life will unfold. And what are they
There's
going to
kids,
do with it?
there's kids that could kick my butt on stage, and they're newer. When you're a kid, you learn faster too. So it is a good time to focus on your schoolwork. Yes, but if you're a kid that all you do is hang out with friends, but you're developing this art form, take some time to develop this art form because you learn faster than adults do, or even teenagers. I started as a teenager. So there are kids now that could run circles around me. I've been doing this for 18 years, and there's some kids I've seen that I gave them a standing ovation.
Really just truly amazing. Yeah, we feel very gifted that we are able to have this conversation with you, and for you to share that inspiration and that advice, especially for our younger viewers, but also for our parents who will be watching this particular episode of the podcast.
And parents, support your kids because I mean that's their heart. If this is all they're doing, the ventriloquism, because it's what I was doing when I was a teenager. Just show a little bit of support, even if you do have a little bit of doubt or anything, because some parents do. Don't say it to your kid. Just do what you can do to support them, because it's everything to a kid. I've had sometimes my parents didn't exactly support me on things, and even as an adult, I thought about those moments. So your kid remembers forever if you support them as a parent.
That any one of the talent that we've worked with and discovered over the years and started to work from the word go, as it were, have always had incredible parental support.
Yeah.
And that for us is really so tantamount to the success stories that develop, is that this is not about an individual. It's about an individual within a family structure that is working on that family structure, and know the happiness of their child is more important than anything.
Yeah. Because you want to be happy doing this. The chances of being one of those, and a lot of performers are, but the chances of being one of those performers that's overly critical on everything you're doing can hinge on this. So you're a parent, you tell your kid, oh, this needs work. Even if the kid perfects that part of their act that needed work, they're going to be thinking about you saying that. They're going to hear your voice every time they perform it. Terry Fader, when Terry Fader met Clinton Detweiler, he was a big influence in our ventriloquist field. He was like the father to a lot of ventriloquists. He was a best friend. He passed away many years ago. I don't, the exact years escaping me. Terry Fader did a show for Clinton. Clinton was in the audience, I mean. And Clinton Detweiler tells Terry Fader after the show, because he was able to get backstage, I feel like a proud dad. And that stuck with Terry, and it overrode everything his dad ever told him. So if you just tell your kids you're proud of them, and you could literally just say that you're proud of them, it's going to stick with them forever, and they're going to love doing this more. And it will show in their shows. If you're not having a good time, it will be visible.
Yeah. So this conversation is bringing up all sorts of questions for me, in terms of
I got all day.
some of the work that I do within the process of coaching, because, yes, I'm in the business of show business, but also being a life coach, and not about self-promotion, but a clinical hypnotist. I realize that. Well, there you go. Yeah, sometimes we just stare into space and pretend we've zoned out for a while. It's a good joke, that, Jeremy. What is going on within a person is so incredibly complex at times, and it shows in every performance.
I'll happily share. Last year, 2024, was one of the worst years to ever happen to me. I ended up divorced and I was being cheated on the entire year, but also full of doubt because she was decent at hiding it most of the time until I went through her phone, caught a few different things. But I still had to show up to my gigs. I was still on stage. I don't believe the quality suffered. I didn't film any of the shows because I wasn't in the state to even perform last year. I will say I didn't let it show to the audience. I didn't let it show. They were still having a good time. It was still like any other show I do, a little bit different material than this year. But my girlfriend of 6 months, who I'm with, I'm not with her right now physically, but she's at home. Um, she told me that when she looks at a couple of those professional photos that were taken, if you look, it's the blue shirt with the red bow tie. I did a show last year, and those were taken. She can see it in my eyes that it wasn't as good as it is now. And so, your world could be on fire inside. I felt like I had third-degree burns inside for an entire year. But what counts is your audience doesn't know it. And if it somehow bleeds through on stage, try to make it right, make it seem like you're doing better than you are even. Fake it till you make it. Good motto for show business. So I'm just sharing that because like a lot of people may be going through something. Also try to turn your phone off before your gig. My mentor taught me this, that when he was younger, he left his phone on so he was able to still see texts. And I believe he said it was his ex-wife at the time told him the dog died about 10 minutes before he went on stage.
Yeah, huge moments.
Um,
And what comes first, the show or the reality of any particular process? That's always the difference between someone who's committed to what they're doing as an actor or as a performer, as opposed to someone who's just using it as a hobby.
One of my shows right after I got divorced, which was December last year, I got divorced. I was doing a show where, I wasn't fit to be on stage at the time. I made it work. I was smiling, but I was choked up a little bit the whole time. Like I would duck behind because I duck behind this table to change puppets. It carries my puppets in it. And I would take just a second behind there to just, massage my neck, make sure I'm not getting choked up because I wasn't ready to be on stage. But my mentor taught me one time, smile now, laugh, make sure your audience is laughing, having a great time. You can cry the entire ride home if you need to. But, and I just say that because I've gone through some of the worst stuff you could imagine before going on stage. So, I mean, I would rather have given childbirth to a chair versus going through that before going on stage. So
Well, that's
that was just weird.
Yeah, weird is weird, but that's the way that it goes. And talking of weird, how do you develop your character of the figure that you're working with?
So like I said, in the winters when you take a lot of that time to sit, write material, you don't want to debut a character on stage too early before they're developed. I've done it just as a little screen test kind of thing and kind of tease the audience about next year's shows or something. Um, but wait till the winter, wait till your seasons or you're a winter if you live down south, when you're not doing shows, it's too hot to perform. Um, Really take the time to try to write new material. This day and age, it's easier than ever. You don't have to go buy comedy books anymore. You can use Chat GPT to just get ideas. I don't think AI is all evil. It has its uses. Um, don't just steal jokes. Jeff Dunham would actually teach Larry the Cable Guy's technique for writing material. Would be that he would buy joke books, and one of the jokes was trying to think of a good example, and I'm having trouble thinking about one, but he would turn the jokes into that book into his own life story. So, what do you get when someone walks into a church or whatever? Little example. He would turn it into, well, me and my cousin, we walked into the church and this happened, get her done. And that's what works for Larry. And it's a similar thing with ventriloquists. If you're hitting a writer's block, you can always try to find some just cheap jokes online. I use a lot of the ones you find on Facebook in my show. Find some jokes online, try to personalize it to the puppet. And some ventriloquists, and I've done this a few times when I've had a little extra trouble, make a character sheet. This character's name is this. Try to think of a fun, punny name. A lot of old ventriloquists would do it. What do they like? What do they dislike? Do they work somewhere? If I remember it, I did this for Lucky because he has a joke about working as a mannequin at a clothing store. What do you do exactly is in the clothing store, Lucky? And he wouldn't move for killer joke. And I came up with that by doing a character sheet. I sat there, I was like, I don't know, he seems like he'd be a model. He's fiery, he's spicy. My original plan for Lucky, but I didn't go with it because of how people can be in the political climate these days. He was going to be gay. And so I was going to have him, be more gay. He was going to talk about boyfriends and stuff. That would not have worked out well. No, I know. I tried it. Lucky, I didn't like it. Lucky. Jeez. And so character sheets are very helpful. And I think a lot of people, when they make cartoons, like if I remember it, I believe Butch Hartman, creator of Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, I believe he mentioned doing something like that one time. You'd sit there, don't try to write the comedy right away. Just who is this character? And does he get along with the ventriloquist? Most don't because it's funnier when they don't. But Lyle's super sweet to me. He doesn't usually have any issues with me unless I slip a little improv in. What else could be? Sheldon. He has stage fright. He comes out on stage, he's shaking, he's scared of the audience. And because I was doing a character sheet, I know I did one on him. I came up with something that other ventriloquists don't do. It's not common. I see another ventriloquist and their puppet is scared of being on stage. I do a joke with Lucky sometimes. He's scared of ventriloquist dummies. And so that I know I'm talking a mile a minute and I'm talking in circles here, but a character sheet helps. And then you have to sit there and work the figure. You can't just shelve them and hope that material comes to you. This is the time of year I'm starting to grab the characters again and sit down and talk to them like an old friend. We're on the couch and can I have a drink? No. You're having one. Lucky, I'm not having a drink right now. It's off camera. Lucky, So you see what I mean there? It comes to life. I'm sitting there working them right there. That was not a planned thing I was doing. I was just talking to him like a normal person, and there starts to be this conflict, and you might pull a joke out of that or two, and you might not. And what it's been described as, I've heard it from Mike Palma is a good friend of mine, Bob Abdu, another good friend of mine, maybe a couple other people. Dan Horn might have said it. Comedy writing is a muscle, so you want to exercise it. And I've been working up the courage to do Mike Palma's challenge. I believe it was Mike Palma's 3 jokes a day for a whole year after the new year. And before you know it, you'll have, whatever 365 times 3 is, that many new jokes in your act. Will all of them work? No, but you're keeping active. There's things I'm learning about Lucky now. I've been in his act since 2017. Yeah.
So, Jeremy, thank you very much for today's appearance and sharing your life and your process on the podcast and with all our viewers. I've just got one final question for you, if I may.
Uh-oh. What's it?
Do ventriloquists talk in their sleep?
I've been told I do.
You do?
I've been told I'll say random things. One time my ex-wife did get a video of me and I have it on recording. I was playing a lot of Mortal Kombat. So when you're doing things a lot, you might repeat it in your sleep. I've had dreams where I'm doing shows. I was playing Mortal Kombat a lot, favorite video game of mine, and I was talking about, it was nonsensical. It was in my sleep. But I was talking about a certain character with his weapon, he got it from a temple or whatever, which is in the storyline. But you just brought up I brought up a tangent by saying I had dreams about performing. I get those a lot. And I might come up with something from the dream. That's how I came up with him doing Chantilly Lace for a show. Of course, in the dream, I was on this massive arena stage. I do county fairs. I could have 10 in my audience. But in this dream, I was behind the curtain and the show was starting. Jeremy Lepak, and the curtain was coming apart. Strobe lights were going, and Lucky's playing the piano. Now in the dream, somehow he's doing it by himself. In the dream, they're actually alive a little to a degree. And all of a sudden in the dream, I remember loudly in my microphone echoing through the arena, Chantilly lace and a pretty face and a tawny so I do that in my show because I had that dream.
Well,
he talks enough when he's awake, let alone in his sleep.
I really hope and wish for you that dream manifests very shortly. And I also dream that
everything I post too.
I'm able to be there to witness that moment, because this has been a very entertaining conversation and very inspiring. And I just want to wish you all the best. And for our viewers to please follow Jeremy. He's on YouTube. And he's
follow us on every platform. And I will say, try to hit the follow button on Facebook. I get a lot of friend requests who I have no idea who they are. And I'm very careful about adding friends. So if you have a pup in your profile, I'll add you. But yeah, just hit that follow button. My name is right there on the bottom of my screen. And you'll find me on most social media. TikTok too. I don't do a lot of TikTok, but I will add you back.
We'd
and Paul, I gotta say, I appreciate you again having me on here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And let's make that work at some other point as well, and we'll go into some deeper conversation.
Deeper. He went 30 deep. Lucky. Why don't you say bye to these guys? Why don't you say goodnight, Lucky? Good night, Lucky. Thanks for having us on here. Okay. You had enough to say. That's right. I chipped in a lot. Yeah, that's all you, though. I know.